Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. I will title this segment Valley Time. Once again, this segment is entitled Valley Time. Now, brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws, do not turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We are to walk the straight and narrow ways of the Most High's commandments. We're not to deviate to the right hand or to the left. And this becomes more so important when we are in times of trouble. So once again, peace and Yah bless to everyone, and I hope the Most High has kept you and kept your house safe. I have not been on the internet for quite some time because I've been going through some things. I've been down in the valley. I was not in the valley the entire time, but there were some times where I was in the valley and it was quite difficult and stressful. And so today's delivery is going to be specifically to those of you who are in times of trouble, maybe going through some trouble with your family members, maybe going through some issues with yourselves. And some of you may be on the mountaintop right now, but there may be a time when you may be in the valley and you are to be strengthened in the Most High Yah in times of trouble. So I'm going to start off with a few things here. Let's deal with the medical industrial complex. If you are on any medications or your family members are on any type of medication, or if your physician is suggesting that you be placed on some type of medication, especially if it's long term. Now, it matters not whether it's long term or short, because in some cases an aspirin may kill you. However, if you are being recommended for any type of medication, it is within your best interest that you will carefully and thoroughly review that medication and its side effects to see how it can affect you, both physically as well as psychologically. Now, my wife she's been bedridden for many years with rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. These things, my wife is unable to walk. She's bedridden. And so she's been through many, many different struggles as it pertains to this quote unquote autoimmune disease. Now, many types of medication has been given to her that supposedly should have slowed down the process and help her within the process dealing with pain and mobility and things of the like. On two occasions prior, I have dealt with her and have gone through the process where some of these medications have caused psychological issues. I've dealt with it in two times in the past. Would not wish that on anyone. It's an absolute nightmare. And to be honest with you, if I had not seen and experienced these side effects for myself with her, night after night, sleeping in the hospital bed, seeing the terror and the fear in her eyes, her seeing things that I know is not there, but it's there to her, it's real to her. That experience is quite a nightmare. And if I had not experienced it myself, being present, if someone had told me that, I would not believe it's even possible. So these medications can be just downright dangerous and have some serious adverse effects. I'm talking bad. I'm not going to go into the whole detail of everything, but some of you may have experienced some of these things that I have never experienced before, would not have believed. So I've dealt with this on two occasions before with two different types of medication. So some of my valley time that I've experienced here lately has been the withdrawal from prednisone. Now I've had a bout with prednisone myself. I had a rash one time on my thigh, and my doctor decided that, prednisone would be the answer for it. I have no idea where this rash came from or anything. But he said, well, take this prednisone and, for a few days and it should go away. By the third day of taking prednisone, I could not speak. I could not complete a sentence. I could not breathe, and my heart was beating out of my chest. I had to be placed in the heart and trauma center because my heart was an AFib. I'm on absolutely no medication. I'm what you would consider, for all intentional purposes, a healthy male. However, taking that medication for 3 days put me in the heart and trauma center and gave me AFib. And the minute that I was able to come out of that heart and trauma center, and this happened many years ago, and it's amazing that when you find yourself in a situation where you feel that you may not make it and your life is on the line, all the things that you thought were important and the people that you may feel are important, they're not as important. I remember laying on the gurney because I had to be taken away from my job. I was at work at the time, and my wife had told me I didn't look good and asked me what was wrong, and I was trying to just kind of tough through it. But I went to work that night. This is back when I worked in the night shift, a very long time ago, and my heart was an AFib. I was taken into the room where they actually service our associates. And I had 8 individuals standing around me, asking me questions, sticking needles in my arm, and everyone was in a panic around me. It was that bad. And I remember I thought to myself, am I going to see my daughter again? Very tough period for me. And I remember leaving that hospital that morning, because about 3 o'clock that morning, one of the nurses came into my room and said, "Sir, if your heart does not get back to beating normally, we will have to shock you and to get it back into normal rhythm because it was beating off course, off rhythm." And the cardiologist had actually given her 2 medications to give me, 2 pills, and I was instructed to take those, and had those not worked, then they would have had to shock me. So at that point, I said a prayer, and upon doing so, several hours later, my heart returned back to normal. I remember stepping out of that hospital room that morning and seeing that sunrise and smelling that air. And that's a moment that I'll never forget. We are to remember that life is precious, and no day should be taken for granted. And sometimes being down in the valley reminds us of these things, that life is precious and we are to take advantage of it. And while we are here living, we are to do right. We are to do righteously, and we are to walk within the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So this was my bout with prednisone. For me, it put me in the heart and trauma center, gave me problems with my heart. Now the female doctor that night at the heart and trauma center, I'm trying to explain to her that I do not have any type of medical issues whatsoever. It is this medication. She's telling me, no, you could just have AFib. It can happen at any time, and all these other things. Now, from the minute that I stopped taking that medication, after those 3 days and I was placed in the heart and trauma center, I've never had AFib after that. I've never had any heart issues at all, ever, and don't anticipate having any. So the medication that the medical industrial complex will just hand out to us, many times they have adverse effects upon our bodies. So we're to be mindful. Had that medication killed me, I can just about assure you that it would have been hard to brought any type of punishment against those who issued that medication to me, the doctors, as well as those that manufacture that medication. Because upon going through that, I started reading about the different things and the different effects of prednisone. Me personally, I did not have any type of psychological and psychiatric effects. it directly affected my heart. And we know without your ticker, you're just not going to be here for very long. So that was my experience with this medication, prednisone. Another instance, my doctor. Normally, I would actually have a physical every year. So one year I had a physical, and I'm standing there after all is said and done, and he's writing a prescription. And he writes a prescription, he hands it to me. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, what is this for? Because, doctor's handwriting, you can barely read that thing. He said, it's for high blood pressure. I said, really? I said, do I have high blood pressure? He said, no, you don't. He said, but a man your age needs to be taking something. I said, well, I don't have high blood pressure, so I'm not going to take it. He said, well, suit yourself. At least try to take 1 aspirin a day. Gave him back that. He didn't give it back to him. As a matter of fact, he never did get a chance to give it to me. He balled it up, threw it away, right? And he said, well, at least take 1 aspirin a day. I never took 1 aspirin a day, and I never took that prescription that he wrote. He threw it away. The following year, same thing. Did my physical, and he tried writing me a prescription for high blood pressure. And I asked him once again, I said, do I have high blood pressure? He says, no. And he begins to give me the same excuse that he did last time. A man your age needs to take something. And I told him, I said, Doc, I don't have high blood pressure, and I don't appreciate this, and I hope you don't do this again. He has never done that since. However, had I been silly enough to take what he had written out and take that to the pharmacy and not ask the right questions and flat out refuse to take it, some of these high blood pressure medications, you can be on it for life. Some of it you cannot get off. And some of them have some serious adverse effects. So they're pretty much taking these medications and handing them out like candy, many of which do not have any healing properties, many of which will cause other effects. Let's get back to prednisone. Prednisone is a medication that has all types of adverse effects. And you can take the time to look it up. Some people it may not affect. It'll have you get fat. It'll give you heart problems. It'll give you psychiatric problems. It'll do a bunch of things. So when dealing with this prednisone, you ought to be careful if any of your family members are taking this. My wife was actually coming off of this prednisone. Now, why she's been on this thing for 20 years. And no one should be on that medication for that long. Anyway, it was said that it would actually curtail the inflammation of the rheumatoid arthritis. Now, during this whole process, we must understand that there's no pain medication involved. If you touch her, she hurts. She's hurting everywhere, and this is happening all the time. And she's unable to walk because her joints cannot support her body weight. So it's quite a painful ordeal. But this medication can be used for many different aspects. Now, she has been told that she has glaucoma and was given a prescription for eye drops. These eye drops will cause heart attacks and many other issues or side effects. So after going through temporary psychosis and an absolute nightmare several weeks ago, this was part of my valley time. She stopped taking the prednisone after 20 years, and that caused a withdrawal and some psychosis, and it was absolutely horrible. And then we returned back to the eye doctor. And the eye doctor states that you do not have glaucoma. And well, she's been taking these drops for many years because she has been told that she had glaucoma. So the doctor says, no, you don't have glaucoma. Come back in 2 weeks and we will check to verify. So we return 2 weeks later, and what do you know? There is no case of glaucoma. So the prednisone also caused glaucoma. And the minute she withdrew from it, all of a sudden she no longer has glaucoma. So there's a racket going on here, and there's a lack of care or a lack of consideration for what these medications can possibly do. Excuse me. Need to take one break.